If you're trying to drop some weight, you already know it's important to eat healthier and to move your body a little bit more. But what you might not consider is your sleep. It's so important in everything we do. And that's what we'll be diving into today. Hello and welcome to Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. I am so delighted to welcome clinical psychologist Dr. Candice Seti. She is the author of Self-Sabotage Behavior Workbook and Shatter the Yo-Yo. She's a weight management specialist, and she's here to tell us the connection between sleep and weight management and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I heard you in a nutrition summit that I was part of, and you spoke so eloquently about this topic. And I said, I have got to get you on my podcast because you really put it in such a good way and you really explained it very well. So let's just start off with that right off the bat. What is the connection between weight management and sleep?
Gosh, I mean, that would take hours because it is so intricately connected. But I mean, most people know sleep. Yeah, we need it for peak physical health and even mental health, even behavioral wellness. But people forget about how connected all of that stuff is to weight management and the way our body holds on to weight and or lets go of weight in so many different ways. One of the biggest ones is an appetite regulation. The reality is the more we sleep and the better quality sleep we get, the less impulsivity we see in our food choices, the less desire we have to snack because we're much less cravings prone because we're not looking to food to fill our energy bucket because our energy bucket has been met with our good quality sleep. For that reason, we're less drawn to kind of the higher calorie, higher carb, higher fat foods. And we feel more satiety with our meals. We are more drawn to healthy foods. So the appetite piece is so huge.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with our hormones too.
Oh my God.
Explain that. Yes.
So, all of our, in a very simplistic manner, all of our hormones are kind of balanced, so to speak, through sleep. And when we don't get enough sleep again, or we don't get good quality sleep, our hormone levels aren't where we want them to be. They aren't in their ideal place. And we have hormones that regulate our appetite, that tell us to eat when we're hungry and tell us to stop eating when we're full. And those hormones are not where we need them to be when we don't get enough sleep. And what that means is we have hormones telling us we're hungry, even if we're not. And we have hormones not telling us we're full and satiated when we are. So what that means is we keep eating and we keep feeling driven to eat. And, I say this all the time, we're never going to win the battle against our hormones. They are always going to win. So if your hormones are telling you you're hungry, you're going to genuinely believe you're hungry. And that is a really, really tough battle to engage in. And if your hormones are not telling you to stop eating, it's incredibly difficult to stop eating. And so these hormones are all out of whack and we are fairly helpless to fight them.
It's the big problem though in our country. I mean, lack of sleep,
Huge.
Getting up in the middle of the night or having trouble falling asleep. What is the reason for it?
Well, I mean, lifestyle is probably to blame. I mean, we look at not just, everyone blames technology and screens and blue light and all of this that, light exposure that we're getting from TV, from computers, from phones, from tablets, from all of
It doesn't help.
Yeah. But we're also just busy and overwhelmed and overstimulated. And there's so much going on and our brains are going a mile a minute. And, most people who tell me they have trouble sleeping and they wake up in the middle of the night, the problem is not just that they wake up in the middle of the night. The problem is that they wake up in the middle of the night and their brain is spinning and they're thinking about the 4,000 things they have to do the next day and the 4,000 things they did the day before and how they did them wrong and what they need to do different and how they're beating themselves up for it and what they need to get ahead of and what somebody's going to think of them. And all of this stuff is overwhelming our brain. And then how do you shut that down and fall back asleep?
Yeah.
And then we have the added impact of technology and blue light exposure. And, light in the blue light spectrum basically inhibits melatonin. And melatonin is our sleep hormone. And so when we expose ourselves to artificial light, we're suppressing that hormone. And, it makes sense because, caveman days, we didn't have ways to artificially expose ourselves to fluorescent light, right?
Yes, right.
We didn't have screens producing this light for us. So this light is also interfering with our natural circadian rhythm and preventing us from sleeping in the way that our bodies were designed to sleep.
You work with your patients one-on-one, and I'm sure every patient is different. But in general, if you had to summarize, what are some of the tips that you would give them for people who either have trouble getting up or have trouble going to sleep at night?
Well, there are definitely some that we can generalize. The in the world of insomnia treatment, which is what I do primarily with my patients is treat insomnia, we're looking at the concept of sleep hygiene, which is the idea of putting kind of good habits in place around your sleep. And a lot of this relates to our sleep environment. So, how dark is it where you're sleeping? How quiet is it where you're sleeping? What's the temperature where you're sleeping? How comfortable is your sleep environment? And making sure all of those things are ideal for sleep. And ideal for sleep means very, very dark, like as dark as it could possibly be, limiting almost any light exposure, if not all light exposure during your sleep hours. It means sleeping in either a quiet space or a space that has consistent white, pink, or brown noise. So that's not TV noise or not another person noise or anything like that, but creating the type of noise or lack of noise environment that's consistent for sleep. And then sleeping in a really cool temperature. Our body sleeps much better in cool than it does in hot. And so doing things that are within your control to make your environment cooler, whether that be air conditioning or fans or windows or lighter comforters or lighter sheets or lighter pajamas or whatever it is that you need to do to create a cool sleeping environment. Those are things that everybody can do to make a better sleep
Sure.
space for
Yeah,
themselves.
not difficult steps.
Yes. The other thing that everybody can do at least a little bit, some people's schedules don't allow for it as much, but is to be consistent with your sleep schedule because our bodies thrive on routine and going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. The more consistently you do that, the more your body will just fall into rhythm with that. And this is
Even on a
usually,
weekend when you don't have to go to
yes,
work, it's still important to
yes.
do that. Yes.
That is exactly what I was going to say. It's so easy for people to do on the weekdays and so much harder for them to do on the weekends. And people don't realize how much that sleep change on the weekends is negatively impacting their sleep
It's
overall.
funny though, because you would think it would help you. I'm tired. I want to
Uh-huh.
sleep in, on a Sunday
Uh-huh.
morning, right? But in the long run, you're saying that's really not good to do.
Yeah. I mean, the sleeping in on Sunday sets you up for Sunday night insomnia because you sleep later on Sunday and then you try to go to sleep at your normal sleep hour Sunday night, but you
Right.
haven't been awake the same amount of hours. So you don't have a buildup of the neurotransmitters that create sleep pressure in our brain. So we're just up. And then we get a terrible night's sleep Sunday night, and then it sets off our sleep pattern to be irregular the entire rest of the week. And the
Right.
most
Right.
effective thing you can do for that is just to keep a normal sleep schedule on the weekends, just as much as you do on the weekdays. I
That's
know people
actually
hate
a
that.
really good point. I know. I know. Especially if you're watching Sunday night football like we all do here in this area, Philadelphia Eagles, right? So it gets
Well,
everybody
here
revved
we
up and
get
then
it
it's hard to go to sleep.
earlier, so that's
Yeah, you're
better.
in
Yeah.
San Diego, so it's all different there. But it's very, that's very, very tough to do when people are tired and they feel like they need that extra sleep. But it is important to maintain that. And how many hours of sleep? I hear this, you could get 6, you could get 7, you could get 8. It really depends on you, right?
Absolutely. Sleep needs are so individual. I will say the average sleep need across all humans is probably about 7 hours, but there's, a good hour standard deviation amongst that. So we would say 6 to 8 is probably average. But I can also tell you there are some people who 5 is their needs and some people who 9 is their needs. But ideally, it's somewhere between 6 and 8. And the idea is really to look at if you were sleeping however many hours, how do you feel the next morning? Are you able to wake up without an alarm clock? Are you able to function optimally throughout the day? Are you able to pay attention to things? Do you feel like you're dragging all day and desperately in need of caffeine? Right. So
Yes. And
really
people do
looking
that,
at that.
caffeine or sugar at 3 o'clock, to pick themselves up again. A vicious
Hmm.
cycle. vicious cycle because then you're up again after that. So
yeah,
it makes it difficult.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's somewhere for most people, I'd say it's somewhere between 6 or 8. And you really won't know what it is until you're giving yourself that kind of consistently and able to assess how you feel as a result of it.
So I talked to you already about this when you were doing the nutrition summit. I was the girl chatting with you saying, I'm a night owl. What do I do? Yeah. And you said you're a little bit of a night owl too. And I had heard that's part of your DNA. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I feel like I was born this way. Like I was born to stay up at night. Plus my family were late night people. They were always up watching television. And it just was something that I learned. And it's really hard for me to say, go to bed by 9 o'clock. I feel like the night is young and I still want to kind of do a few things. I got to watch the dishes and watch some TV and maybe read something. And I'm awake. And that is just really, really hard for me to wind down. And I don't know if you have other people like that, but it's not. When I get to bed, I will fall asleep because it's midnight then. But then I'm tired when I wake up because I didn't get enough sleep.
Well, and that's the problem for all of us that are night owls. We live in a world that is not catered to us. We live in a world that caters towards the early risers, right? But, typical work schedules, 9 to 5, right, don't allow people to sleep in later. So for people that are night owls and want to go to sleep at 12, 1, 2 a.m., that's fine if they're able to get enough sleep. But if they have to conform to a lifestyle or a work schedule that doesn't allow them to sleep in, then we need to fight that. And we need to start working on changing that by going to sleep earlier. And again, if that's the case, it comes down to consistency, right? If you have to get up at 5 a.m. and that means you have to go to bed at, 9 or 10 p.m., the more consistently you do that, the more your body will begin to adapt. But you need to really force it in the beginning to make it.
Well, do you do that? Do you tell people kind of do this cold turkey, go to bed at 9, or if you're used to going to bed at 12, maybe go to 11 or 10 and kind of whittle it down?
The place we start is actually with wake up time, not going to bedtime. Because if you want to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, then you start getting up at 5 a.m. every morning. The go to bed time is going to happen naturally. You're going to get tired and your body is going to say, go to bed. So that's going to start happening naturally if you start to control your wake up time. So wake up time is usually where I start with people. And if you're getting up at 10 a.m. every morning and then I say, let's start getting you up at 5 a.m., that's not going to fly. But maybe let's start getting you up at 9 a.m. and then let's start getting you up at 8 a.m. and working backwards there and focusing more on the wake time than the sleep time, because your body will naturally start to get tired when it needs sleep based on what time you're waking up.
It really it's like everything else. It's like what you eat. It's like how you work out, move your body, physical fitness. It's just a matter of setting your mind and making a plan. I've always have said that. You need to make a plan. Write it out if you have to. I think that's always for me at least, that's a good way to do it. Here's what I want to do. Here's my goal. This is what I want to accomplish. Because without doing that, got to be honest, I kind of like staying up. My family's asleep. It's my little time by myself. And that's a hard thing for me to overcome because I like it. I always say it's hard for people to diet because they like to eat certain foods. It's not easy to overcome something when you like it, but you have to look at the long-term gain.
Well, the trade-off. And also
the
finding
trade-off.
ways to like whatever you're doing differently. So for some people, that's about getting up early and finding that me time first thing in the morning. Getting up before everybody's awake and saying, this is my time and I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm going to
I want to do that. I want to.
Yeah. So finding ways to like that too. So it's not just torture and awfulness, but it's actually also a pleasant experience, but in a different way. And then finding ways to focus on all of the other benefits and positives that you're getting from that change. So it's not like I'm getting rid of this thing I love and everything sucks, but I'm getting rid of this thing I love and I'm replacing it with all of these other things that I love.
Just like every other positive habit. Just like every other one. So I need to work on it. And that's really good advice because it just comes down to, in some ways, how much do you really, really want this? And what are you willing to do to get it? I mean, that's sort of like how you achieve anything in life. I always say, unless you won the lottery, anything that you have that's good in your life, you've probably had to work for it or do something to get it. And so whether it's a job, whether it's your family, children, maintaining your weight, being healthy, you've had to put some kind of effort into it. It doesn't generally just happen. And so the same thing is, comes with sleep. And over my lifetime, I've learned so much more about this, especially being a health reporter for 30 plus years. And even more recently, the research that's out, that sleep just affects everything. You cannot do anything without a good night's sleep. It's like the basis for everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially in the health world, I mean, we're talking about weight, but I mean, there's all sorts of other disease risk issues that all get mitigated as a result of getting better sleep. I mean, there are so many aspects of our general health, wellness, and life longevity that are addressed by sleep. And it's just not the thing we naturally gravitate towards to say, this is what'll fix it. We tend to do the opposite, right? We say, oh, well, I'll just get up earlier and I'll do this, or, I'll get up extra early and throw in that extra workout, or, put in time to, work on this project. And we let sleep be the thing that we skimp on, when actually it's the thing that's most beneficial for us.
Absolutely. And that's how I was type A personality in my life. It's like if I had extra time, I would do something else, whether it was clean the house or whatever else I was trying to do, get another workout in. I would never think that sleep was the most important thing in my 20s or 30s. But now as I'm older, I realize, it's such an important part of your life. And you mentioned, your health, it can affect your heart health, risk of so many chronic diseases. Just, it's incredible how important it is. And yet we don't really talk so much about it. Tell us about your workbook, what you do, what's in the workbook? What can people get from that?
The Self-Sabotage Behavior Workbook is all about, I mean, as it sounds, helping people overcome their self-sabotaging behaviors in any aspect of their life. But certainly this applies to weight management. It applies to health. It can apply to sleep. I mean, I see all the time people who do engage in sleep procrastination as a form of self-sabotage. So it's really about overcoming all of the ways that we tend to stand in our own way, all of the ways that we tend to impede and prevent ourselves from achieving our goals, and learning not just why we do that, but step-by-step behavioral actions we can take to stop doing that and actually begin living our dreams, living out our goals, instead of feeling like we're always stuck.
You must really love what you do. I'm sure you help so many people with all kinds of issues. It's not just sleep. You work with them on many different concerns, cognitive therapy, and not just weight loss, but specialty people who are going through menopause, so many different concerns. And that's got to be a good feeling for you.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. I mean, like I said earlier, I can talk about this stuff all day, every day, because I love it. And I love being able to take all of this stuff and have it, see the impact it has on people when they do start making these changes, and, not just feeling fantastic physically, but feeling great about themselves, feeling confident, feeling secure, feeling happy, right? Feeling capable. I mean, all of these things that people felt were just outside of their grasp, that now they feel like they have such powerful control over, is a
Sure, that
wonderful
must
thing to
be
be a part
wonderful.
of.
How often you work with people online and in person as well?
I work with people 100% online now,
I sent online.
via video. So I work with people one-on-one that way. And then I have a whole bunch of kind of programs that people can do in more of a DIY way for people who are wanting to work through things in their own way. I have several different programs online that people can do on their own.
That is fantastic. And you must just love doing it and helping people, seeing the difference. You must have a lot of success stories.
I feel like I have mostly success stories, I'm very happy to say. I mean, when people are truly motivated and really focused on what they want to do, they just need a little bit of guidance to get there. And so I'm very fortunate that most of the people I work with have been very motivated and very focused and really driven to want to make change. And so I'm just there to help their
I
hand
think
on.
that's probably the place to start. If somebody says to themselves, okay, this is really what I want to do, but not exactly sure how to do it. How do you get that little push, or what steps do you take? Sometimes that's the hardest part. You might have the
Mhm.
desire, but you just don't know what path or how to do it. So you
Well,
really give
you
them that
kind of
guidance.
said it earlier, right? It's about figuring out what it is you want and really focusing on that. People say all the time, oh, I want to lose weight, but they're not really digging into what it is they actually want. Because what they want is not to lose weight. What they want is what they think comes from losing weight, which could be feeling more confident, feeling less fearful, having less pain, feeling more secure in dating or in their relationships or whatever it may be. That's actually what they want, but they're not focusing on that. And so it's about shifting focus to look at what it is you actually really do want to achieve as opposed to the methodology to achieve it.
And also, what I said is that sometimes there's a little bit of pain involved in that because you have to break habits. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to, I'm going to say it, you might have to give something up. I know everyone likes to say, oh, you can eat whatever you want and all these diets, but there is a point where, come on, you have to take a little control of yourself.
Hmm.
And that's really, you have to kind of come to terms with that, I think, in your own mind. Just in my own situation, as I'm saying, I like staying up at night. I kind of deep down don't want to give that up, but I know I need to. Just like somebody who is maybe trying to change their nutrition habits. Maybe they like having that donut at lunch or whatever it is, that cheesesteak or dessert after dinner. And it's not really fun in the beginning to have to give those things up. But if you think long term, if you think I have to give something to get something, I think that you will be greatly rewarded with your efforts. At least
For
that's what I
sure.
found in my life
Yeah.
when I've achieved whatever it was I was going for. It's just this
Well,
one
all
thing.
all of that stuff you said is about moving us outside of our comfort zone. And that's
Yes.
where all of our resistance really comes into play. Because all of that stuff you were talking about, really, when all is said and done, it's comfortable and it's known. And that's where most of us like to live. And we want to stay. And we don't like to go into this unknown, scary place. We want to stay here. Even if it's not chock full of all the things we want, we still strive to stay here. So much of this is about pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, and staying in our comfort zone is a huge reason that we self-sabotage, right? Because we're fundamentally scared of the unknown, and opening ourselves up and facing that fear and allowing ourselves to move forward in that way is a huge part of that process.
That's a really good way to put it. I didn't think of it in terms of that, but it is a comfort zone. Even if it's not serving you, even if it's something that you know isn't the best for you, you at least know it. You're familiar with it. So making that change can be a little difficult, for some
Scary.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. But, I've always said this too. No one's force feeding you that food. No one's making you drink that alcohol. No one's making you stay up late at night. We have control of ourselves. We are the masters of our own destiny. So it's just a matter of changing our mind and directing ourselves in the way we want to go. It's no one else. I mean, no one else can do it for us. You can help people, but if they don't want to do it, or if they're not going to follow your advice or try to do it, it's not going to happen.
100% agreed.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate all your great tips and words of wisdom. I mean, you really have helped me and hopefully a lot of people who will be listening to this. Where can people reach out to you?
You can find me online. My websites are meonlybetter.com or theinsomniatherapist.com. And I have all of my contact information on there. I have all of my social media links on there. I have a bunch of free guides that people can download and all sorts of fun stuff for them to just kind of start and learn and get acquainted with it. So that's probably the best place.
Put the links in the show notes so people
Okay.
can find that easily. Clinical psychologist, Dr. Candice Seti, thank you so much for joining us. I really learned a lot from this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Robin.
And thank you for joining me for Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. Hope you'll follow and subscribe, and I'll keep you updated on my most recent episode. Thank you for being here for Living Well with Robin Stoloff. Until next time, keep living well. That was good.
Okay.